On Wednesday's assignment, you're given 10 diagrams and you're asked to find the measure of the missing angle, which is always noted with a question mark. And I'm going to solve number 1, number 5, number 9, and number 10 in this video. Let's begin with number 1. Number 1, you're given a simple triangle and you're given two of the inside angles. I know that one angle is 55 and the other angle is 70. And then that the third angle is missing. This is the one we need to find. In order to solve this problem, you have to remember something very important about triangles. And this is something you should hopefully never forget. That is, the three interior angles of any triangle add up to 180 degrees. That means any triangle you can think of right now in your mind, I don't care how crazy it looks, the three angles will always add up to 180. So when I'm doing this type of problem, I like to start by asking myself, what do we currently have? Well, I currently have 55 degrees and 70 degrees. And if I add those together, my current total is 125 degrees. We know that in the end, I should get 180 degrees. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 180 and subtract our current total. And when I do 180 take away our current total, we get an answer of 55 degrees. So we now found that the missing angle is 55 degrees, which is our final answer. Now let's look at number 5. For number 5, I'm going to solve it two different ways. The first method is the longer way, but it's actually the most common approach students take. While method 2 is something that students often forget they can do, but it's very, very short. So let's start with the first method. And this is what most students will see. They'll notice that they have a triangle and they have two of the angles. So they'll look at this problem just like we did with number 1. I can find this third missing angle by just taking 180 and subtracting what we know. Well, I know 70 and 24. If I add those together, I have 94. And then 180 take away 94 gives me a total of 86. So that third angle of my triangle is 86 degrees. Students then use this 86 degrees to find the question mark. Hopefully you remember how to do that, but if not, let's go and review that. You're going to notice from E to G, you actually have a straight line. And whenever you have a straight line, what you actually have is what we call a straight angle. And a straight angle always measures 180 degrees. And the typical straight angle doesn't just look like a straight line. What it typically looks like is a straight line cut in half by another line so that you can see two different angles. In this picture, I have A and B. That's what's happening in our picture here. I have the line DC kind of cutting our straight angle in half. Or not in perfectly half, but nearly in half. So what I know is that the question mark plus the 86 together should equal 180. So to find the question mark, all I need to do is take our total of 180 and subtract what we know, which is 86. And 180 take away the 86 will give me 94 degrees. So our final answer, the missing piece, is 94 degrees. Now let's look at method 2. For method 2, you have to use what we call the exterior angle theorem, which is very cryptic if you read it the first time without understanding the vocab. So it says an exterior angle of a triangle is equal to the sum of the two remote interior angles. So for some of us, we're like, huh, what does that mean? Let's break that down through the picture. When I say exterior angle, I just mean an angle outside of your triangle. So the question mark here is clearly outside of my triangle. So that's an exterior angle. When I say remote interior angles, I just mean the angles on the inside that are further away from our question mark. So you're going to notice that this angle here is next to the question mark. So I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking about the two further away ones. So those are what we would call the remote interior angles. And now what the theorem says, it says that the exterior angle, the question mark, is equal to the sum of the two further away inside angles. So all you really do in short is add the two angles on the inside. So 70 plus 24 gives me an answer of 94 degrees. And this is the same exact answer we got from method 1. So you're going to notice that method 2 is a lot shorter, but it requires you to understand some vocabulary. While method 1 is a little longer, but I think it's a little more straightforward for most of us. Now let's look at number 9. Number 9, you actually have two triangles kind of meeting at a point. They're intersecting at this top point. And the most common method students will use to approach this problem is they're going to notice at the top triangle, they have two of the angles. They can find this third missing angle pretty easily by taking 180 and subtracting what they have. They have 40 and 30, which tells me 180 take away 70 which gives me a total of 110 degrees. So this missing angle is 110 degrees. Now we're going to use something that I haven't mentioned yet, but you've seen it in class. That's vertical angles. Remember, vertical angles are the angles opposite of each other, such as this picture I have here. A and B are vertical angles. They're opposite of each other. At this point, they're opposite. And what we know about vertical angles is that they're congruent. In other words, they're the same. They're equal. So if this is 110 degrees, we now know that this angle here is 110 degrees. And now hopefully you see what we're going to do. I now have a triangle on the bottom, and I'm just going to do the same thing I did with the top. I know that these three angles add up to 180. So I take 180 and I subtract what we know. The 110 plus the 25 gives me 135. And 180 take away 135 is 45 degrees. So our final answer, the missing angle, is 45 degrees. Now let's look at our final question, number 10. There's a couple approaches to number 10, but this is what I think would be the most common approach. You're going to notice that you have a triangle on the left and you have a triangle on the right here. And they kind of meet at this point. The triangle on the left is pretty much done. You have two of the angles. You can find the third angle pretty easily. You just have to take 180 and subtract what you know. Well, you know 130. So you can do 180 take away 130, which will give you 50 degrees. So we now know that this angle in the inside is 50 degrees. Now, this is where most students will get stuck, but hopefully you can see what I'm seeing. The bottom here is a straight line. And when I have a straight line, I can always form a straight angle. So I now know that the 50 degrees plus the 70 degrees plus this missing piece will equal 180. So all I need to do is take 180 and subtract what we know, which is 70 and 50, and that'll be 180 take away 120, which gives you 60 degrees left over. So I now know that this third piece of my straight angle will be 60 degrees. And then hopefully you all see what we should do last now. We have a triangle on the right. We know two of its angles. I can easily find the third piece. I'm going to take 180 and subtract what we know. 60 plus 60 gives me 120. And 180 take away 120 gives me the final piece of 60 degrees. So our final answer, the question mark, was a 60 degrees.